All right, how's it going, everybody? This is episode 3 of the Action Effect. We got your co-hosts here, Dan and Zac. We're here to go over all the good and the bad of what we're doing as far as building an 8-figure company and how you guys can also benefit as well and learn, hopefully, from the things that we're doing and the things that we're not doing. So, episode 2, we talked about a lot of things. It was a February recap. We talked a lot about some things that we are implementing for the month of March. And so, let's just kind of talk about some of those things, Dan. Maybe we can talk about how we brought on a bunch of new guys. It was taking a ton of our time. We were not using our time efficiently, and something that you actually put a ton of time and effort into and energy as far as our onboarding system. So why don't you go ahead and touch on that?
Yeah, no, it's actually funny, especially with you coming from, more of a real estate background, understanding the passive income, right? And we kind of took that thought process to more of a training program, which we never really put a lot of energy and effort into, and how it can actually pay dividends for us moving forward, just because of the level of, time and stuff we were spending with each individual rep as a training. We would have to coordinate Zooms. We'd have to coordinate different times to go through every single step of our process. Whereas, what we did now is we recorded a bunch of videos, recorded everything that we were doing with them anyway. And then from there, we were able to just plug all of that into an organized format. So now that we can onboard people a lot faster. And now what that's going to do is, because I know we're both frustrated dealing with bringing people on and training and spending a ton of time with them, I think we would literally probably spend, 20 to 30 hours with an individual. And if they go and end up quitting, what do we have to show for it? So we've kind of implemented this to where it's actually a lot of redundant stuff, but what it's going to do is it's going to weed out a lot of people who don't actually want to be here. And it allows us to be able to leverage that and just kind of send them a training link, have them go through it. We can monitor everything that they go through to make sure that they're actually doing the material, right? And that way, we also can hold them accountable. If they do have questions in the future, we can be like, well, we had a video on that. Did you watch it? Did you pay attention when you were actually going through that? Or did you just kind of click through and were you scrolling Instagram doing that sort of thing? So I think we both realized that a lot of people, they want their handheld and they don't necessarily want to take things seriously, and they lack the resourcefulness to go and do that. They just kind of always look to us, and that's what we are trying to get away from, right? So
no, absolutely, man. And I really see 2 major benefits of it, right? One, we're able to track what they're doing. Like, how much have they actually done? Like, we send them the link and we can see, okay, hey, you only watched, video 1, let's say, is 20 minutes. You only watched 5 minutes of the 20-minute video. Like, no wonder you're confused, because you can't even do simple step 1, which is watch a video. So how do we expect you to be, a top performer for us if you can't even follow those directions? And then the second thing that I really see powerful is, and the hundreds of reps that I've hired and trained and done with sales, I always am like, man, this guy's going to be really good, right? He's got all the skills in the world, but he doesn't end up doing anything, right? And then you have another guy who's like, I don't really know how he's going to do. I mean, he seems eager, but I don't really know if he has necessarily the skill set for it. And then he ends up being one of your top performers. So the nice thing I see about this onboarding system is, say we bring on 10 new guys, we're not having to spend, like you said, 30 hours per rep, which would be 300 hours, that we don't have time to spend. We can bring on 10 and be like, okay, hey, this simple onboarding system already weeded out 6 of the 10. Now we have 4 guys left that just made it through simple step 1. And then now we can focus on those 4 guys, and they're already coming in with a much higher level of knowledge because of the onboarding system. So I definitely see it being a huge benefit in the future. And, with all the new marketing and things that we have going on, I mean, we need more guys. We need guys that want to rock and roll and run. So, ultimately it's allowed us to use our time more efficiently, where you and I can do higher level stuff and come in and help close, when we need to, and those types of things. So, which kind of brings me to my next topic, Dan, as far as leadership, right? we both have kind of different leadership styles. We also kind of have the same leadership styles in a way where we like to lead from the front, as far as, you know, we're very much not the, hey, we're up on an ivory tower with a whip, like go get your stuff done. Like we're very much like in the trenches with our guys. We like to lead from the foxhole and not, you know, back at base camp with a walkie-talkie saying, hey, go get it done. So why don't you kind of touch a little bit on your leadership style and what you feel like, you know, really helped us get to that, you know, almost $2 million in a single month?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it's kind of what you said. I definitely have a focus on leading from the front, which at the same time gets me in trouble, right? Because I kind of have a natural tendency to believe that people are just going to do what I do, which is, it's not realistic, right? Everyone needs to kind of, not everyone, but a lot of people, especially on our team, they like to have some sort of structure and instruction because they don't have the ability to go take the initiative to know exactly what it is they're supposed to do, right? So, which I mean, to a fault, and I think you're probably actually very similar in this. We're both just very nice and passive to where we kind of let stuff go on probably longer than we should have, to where, you know, we've noticed and seen results when we actually harp on people and we call them out on stuff that they know they should be doing and be better at, and they actually start to get results from that. And now it's like, okay, well, maybe we need to start being more stern. And I think, you know, I think I have a bad habit of becoming friendly with people, in a sense of not, you know, not saying that you don't want to be their friend, right? But you also need to definitely set the standard of someone that they want to follow, right? And that's where, like you said, I believe that it is important to actually lead from the front and make sure that you are telling them to do things that you've already done or constantly continue to do, right? Everything that we tell them from a training standpoint, we do every single day, and we try to be the standard of that. But you know, I think you could probably agree too that sometimes we let things drag on. We let people, you know, we had a situation yesterday where someone they weren't even working with us and they asked us to close their deal and they would get full credit for it. It's like, no, man, like we had to actually kind of step on that and put that to an end to really make sure that these people understand, you know, that that's not what we expect. You know, and I think what would you say that you think you could work on or build up to put yourself in a better leadership position?
Yeah, man. No, I mean, it's definitely something that I have, you know, I've learned and worked very hard at, because I fall into that also, where I'm just such an action taker that if somebody hits me up and they're like, hey, Zac, can you hop on this call with me and help me do X, Y, Z? Or, hey, Zac, I'm new. I booked a presentation. Can you do it for me? You know, type of situation. And it's like, there is an extent to that in the beginning, right? Like, yes, I need to do that. But after I've done 5 or 6 with this person, or I've done 3, you've done 3 with the same guy, it's like, okay, man, like rip the Band-Aid off, grow a pair of testicles, let's get to work, you know? So I'm getting better at that. Sorry guys, I'm getting so many texts. I tell people that I'm doing a podcast and they just, so it's my wife, man. I'm like, come on. But anyways,
would you say that because we have that mentality where we both just we both literally just like taking a lot of action, that sometimes when we do get frustrated with situations like that, would you say that, you know, we feel like it is taking money out of our pocket to an extent? And it's sometimes it makes us go back and forth. It's like, hey, are we better off leading a team, or are we better off just going and doing this ourselves? Because at times it's like, dang, man, like I feel like we could go be making more money if we just didn't rely on other people. But
yeah, and that's something that every entrepreneur deals with, right? It's like you ultimately have to delegate to elevate, right? But you're always sitting here thinking like, man, I could do it better, right? But you know, every book we read is like, if you can build somebody up 70% or 75% of your ability, then ultimately then you need to walk away from that. And I think what I have learned the most about myself is that I'm naturally a nice guy, right? I'm naturally not somebody who is a dickhead. Not saying you need to be a dickhead, but there's times where I need to be like, no, look, this is what you need to do. And it might hurt your feelings, but you suck right now because you're not doing X, Y, Z, you know? And so instead of me always trying to kind of comfort them in a way. I need to have more of a velvet glove on where it's like smack them around a little bit but then also uplift them, which we're getting better at it. I'm not saying that like, I'm over here like a teddy bear by any means, but there's just times where, I think to myself, like, I probably should have said XYZ to that person on that call, and kind of, I had an opportunity to lead that gentleman in a way that I didn't step into because, I was maybe afraid to hurt their feelings sometimes, where we are getting better about that. In fact, we had a guy who's been on our team for several months, and we kind of gave him an ultimatum in a way, like, look, you need to step up to the plate and do this, or, unfortunately, we're going to have to let you go, even though we like you and you're a great guy. And then he called you, Dan. So why don't you kind of touch on how that whole story went, and then what his results have been?
Yeah. So basically, towards the end of February, I'll give a little backstory. I think there were like 3 or 4 days left in February. And initially, from January 1st, everyone had 90 days to do at least 12 deals. Now, obviously, there were a couple of things that went along with that. Which we learned, we want to give people a shorter time frame to achieve a goal to be a part of the team, right? But what we also realized is, if people are sitting at 2 to 3 deals after 60 days, and then they go and pump out 10 in the last 30, it's like, is that really a person you want on your team? Because now they're just demonstrating they've been lazy for the last 60 days, right? And then over 30 days, they just rock this. So what changed, right? It's not necessarily that they improved drastically over that time. It was more that they had the skill set and they probably weren't working hard enough in most cases. And basically, so 3 days left at the end of the month, we told a couple representatives who had 2 to 3 deals up to that point, we're like, hey, you guys need to hit 6 by March, or we're going to have to go a different direction. So fired off those texts. Some people understood, some people didn't. And this gentleman gave me a call, and pretty much he was very distraught, right? He was very like not understanding and feeling like blindsided. But I was like, listen, man, you've been here for literally 4.5 months now. You've written 4 total deals. And I think a lot of the time he had a crutch that he was constantly relying on. He had just had a kid, and obviously, his circumstance, I'm not downplaying that. I know it's very difficult. I know how hard that can be. But what he was running into was, it was just every single time we talked to him, it was the same excuse, same issue, same thing going on. And at the end of the day, from a business standpoint, you have to be able to separate and be like, listen, man, like, that's a you problem. Like, that's not our company problem, right? Like, that's a you issue. You need to find a way to compartmentalize that and figure out how to do what we brought you on here to do, right? We didn't bring you on here to tell us a bunch of excuses. And we had this conversation, and I was definitely probably a little bit more aggressive than I typically am, from a standpoint of talking to him. And, in the past month, I think he's at like 8 deals this month, and he rattled off like 4 2 weeks in a row. So he's really started to demonstrate. And one of the biggest things that he brought up and mentioned, because we asked him what changed, and it was him understanding that he just wasn't putting in the work that was needed. And it's just crazy. Like, he actually takes the action and does what we tell him. And now all of a sudden he's rattling off a ton of deals. So he was scared I think he was scared to make calls. I think he was scared to actually do what he takes. He was constantly looking for a magic bullet to be able to be successful and write deals, but there really wasn't one. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, man. And, actually 2 more guys come to mind on our team where we did something similar. One, we did it right from the beginning. I mean, this guy in his interview, he showed up in his interview while driving, and I'm like, bro, I'm not interviewing. No, I'm sorry. We had already interviewed him, and we already brought him on. And day 1 of training, he shows up and he's driving. I'm like, I'm not training you while you're driving. Like, this is a waste of my time. Like, we're done. See ya. And then, he's like reaching out to me, like trying to get it done. I'm like, no, this isn't going to work out, whatever. He sends us this text, like, basically, hey, I will do anything you possibly can. And, we called him and was like, look, we'll give you 1 week, and you better be at the top of the leaderboard on calls, or you're done. right? And he has exceeded his skill set, I think. He's a younger guy, you know, he is raw. He's slowly getting better, but he would have never had the results that he's had if we didn't kick him in the butt from the very beginning. And then another gentleman on our team, similar to the guy you just talked about, who's kind of picking up again, who definitely has the skill set to do a deal a day, but hasn't put in the work. You know, he's been going back and forth to different states and just, you know, things that you wouldn't normally get away with, but for some reason that some of these guys think that they can do that kind of stuff. So, but that kind of brings up my next point as far as, you know, building confidence within our team, right? There's certain, you bring on some guys and they got more problems than blows my mind how many issues some people have, which I need to do a better job in the interview process, I think, to really deep dive that situation, because I don't want those problems entered. Like, I don't want somebody to come on our team and then put those problems on me. It's like, I didn't create those problems. You created those problems. Don't put those problems on me and Dan or anybody else on our team. You know, if you don't have money, that's not my fault. Like, you should have been doing things for the past however long to make sure you have money. So, but how, you know, routines, right? Like, I know you and I were very routine oriented, especially in the mornings. I mean, we wake up, we do personal development, we go to the gym, we're very health conscious. You know, we're constantly studying new things, whether it's sales, a new skill, a new industry, this industry we're already in, you know, whatever. So kind of just talk about, Dan, what are things that you do to build confidence in yourself so that you can go out and then pour confidence into our team?
Yeah, I heard Ed Milet say it. He's harped on it a bunch of times, to where, you know, the number one skill to build confidence is keeping promises to yourself. Because at the end of the day, you can lie to me about what you're doing. You can lie to anyone about what you're doing and say you're taking all the action in the world, but you can't lie to yourself, right? Like, deep down, there's somewhere there, like, you know, whether or not that's actually the case, right? But as you start to keep promises to yourself and, you know, set your alarm, don't hit snooze, get up, go to the gym, do the workout and the rep that's that you're expecting to do, you naturally just start building confidence, because you're actually finishing what you started, right? And that's honestly what's been the biggest thing for me, is setting the alarm, getting up, not hitting snooze, and just going, right? And I feel so far whack. I don't do that. I feel like I'm a reactor versus, you know, someone who, like, what you don't want to do is fall into a category of reacting to everything, right? If you wake up late and your phone's blown up and you have a ton of emails and you're just constantly, you have other things dictating how you're going to feel, right? Versus if you get up, and this is why people say getting up early definitely helps, you know, whether or not everyone believes that or not. But if you're up at an hour where there's not a lot of people up, you can actually have time to think and not worry about certain things that are going on. You don't have to respond to emails right away. You don't have to answer text messages right away. So you can have that time to be able to control how you are going to respond to that. And I've just kind of been, you know, I'm sure you're the same way, where you go to the gym, and if you have a nice clear mind and you're at the gym and you're not worrying about anything, if something hits the fan after the gym, you're in a different mindset to deal with that, right? Versus you wake up, something negative happens, now you try to go get a workout in, and that's all you're thinking about. So definitely twofold there. I think ultimately just kind of having a routine and something that you know exactly what you need to do, you build confidence in. So what about, is there anything other than a routine that you feel has helped you kind of facilitate that confidence?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think everything that you said is spot on and is the foundation to building confidence. And then I would say the second thing is that winning builds confidence, right? But you can't win if you're not doing the consistent things every single day. And I'm not saying, you know, it has to be a big win. I mean, you go to the gym every single day consistently, and then maybe you hit a new PR. You know, maybe you drop body fat percentage, you know, whatever it is. But because you're consistent day in and day out, you're winning, and winning builds confidence. Winning builds your testosterone. Winning makes it where you're more of a badass at home, right? Your wife loves you more. She wants to have more sex with you. Like, there's just all of it, just winning matters, right? And so I think, you know, and it overflows into your work. And I think, especially in sales, when you close a deal, right? It's like, man, you're all jacked up. You go and you close another deal, and it just those winning, the dominoes just keep falling. And especially too, like when you're in a sales slump, like, you know, I'll be honest with our audience right now. I can't close a freaking barn door. It feels like recently. The last like 5 or 6 people I've sat with, man, they're just toying me around. But because I wake up early and I get to the gym and I kick my ass and I do the things that I know, you know, I read the books and I fill my mind full of personal development, and you know, I write my goals down and I do these things that constantly fill my mind and make me feel like, man, I'm getting closer to where I want to be. I'm winning, you know, I'm winning. And then you don't stop. Like I don't let those no's necessarily affect me as much because I'm constantly focused on, okay, what's my next win? What's the next thing that I can do? Keep the promise to myself, like you said. So I think all that matters. I think if you have a solid routine in the mornings and the solid routine in the evenings, the middle of the day is always chaos, right? Everybody will say that. But mornings and evenings are your bookends. If you can keep those straight, then you can build a winning mentality, and ultimately you can have a lot of confidence. So, and I know Dan and I talk about this sometimes, but any guys out there, we actually thought about talking about this, and I think this is kind of a good segue into it. But any guys out there that are feeling lethargic, you're feeling slow, your sex drive is literally non-existent, you're not having any results in the gym, go get your testosterone checked. I mean, I got mine checked and I had the testosterone of like a 70-year-old, and you know, I got that fixed, and it's been an absolute game changer in my life. I mean, I'm actually seeing results in the gym. I went from about 200 pounds trying to gain weight and muscle to 230 in 2 months with literally not changing anything besides, I mean, literally I didn't change anything except for I got my test where it needs to be. So, and when I say I didn't change anything, I was already going to the gym consistently, already eating, you know, I just wasn't having, my hormones weren't in place to be able to actually, you know, go there. So I know, Dan, you went and got yours checked. Yours was actually lower than mine. So it's a real thing, guys. Like men out there, your test is getting attacked, like from all kinds of different avenues. Our testosterone in the modern world is being affected. So I don't know if you want to touch on that, Dan, before I move to the next topic, but
I thought there was an ad coming at the end of that. No, yeah, I mean, mine was super low. I definitely was not surprised, especially learning more and more about what causes it and what helps, or what, you know, helps it decline faster is, you know, living at a higher stress level. And then like lack of sleep is a really, really big one. So if you're not sleeping enough, it definitely, obviously you're going to be tired from the fact that you're not sleeping enough, but now you're also going to have hormones imbalanced to where you're not able to function properly. So yeah, definitely I've started taking some different supplements, and it's definitely been a game changer for me as well, as far as how I feel from day-to-day standpoint. Getting out of bed's easier. Having harder conversations, honestly, is probably a little bit easier too, because you're not as passive to you have the energy to go and attack that, right? So yeah, I think it's something that I would have never gotten checked unless, you know, I understood and read about it more. So definitely, if that's something that you're feeling, and you do have, you know, if you do have a healthy diet and you do a lot of things that should be leading to higher energy levels already, and you're still at a low energy, then yeah, go look at some other differences in your body that chemically could be causing that. Just because, I mean, for me, I was eating well, I was working out, I was pretty consistent in the gym, and it still, you know, it still wasn't making a difference. So
yeah, I actually read a study, and then we'll change topics, but the average young adult today has the same test as a 60-year-old man did in 2000. So think about that. Like it's ridiculous, right? It's insane. And so guys, if you're out there, you might not even realize it, but I promise you, if you have low test, you're feeling like a little bitch and you don't even know it. I honestly, now that my T levels are where they need to be, I realized how much of a little bitch I was feeling and didn't even realize it. So anyways, let's move on to, you know, kind of how we train our guys. You know, what do we do daily? Because you and I are very big on daily training. And we also believe it's one of the best ROIs you can have in your business is taking your team to the next level mentally and, skill wise too. So Dan, why don't you kind of touch on what we do as far as training for our guys?
Yeah, so I mean, we obviously have a new training program that we just implemented. So they kind of go through that. They go through it takes them through like solar, so the product of what they're selling. It takes them through a good understanding of that, and it takes them through our system and how to contact our leads, right, and how to follow up, how to leverage the system and turn that into a weapon, which like we like to talk about. Use the CRM as a weapon. Use it how it's supposed to be used. I think a lot of companies actually don't. One thing we really picked up on was we started a lot of training on the CRM specifically because a lot of people weren't using it effectively. They were using it as like, a reminder. Like they weren't using the calendar. They weren't going through conversations. They weren't leveraging massive text blasts, right? Text messaging, and making notes and updating things. If you look in our CRM, there's literally 16,000 leads in there. Obviously it can get pretty chaotic if you're not moving people around to the right way. So we've started doing a lot more training on that, which allows us to contact these homeowners consistently day in and day out, with automations, and teaching these guys how to leverage those automations so that they can put their time and energy in things that matter and being in more appointments and all that stuff. But more from a training standpoint, when someone does get a hot lead or something, we started treating our reps like they were going to take it from start to finish. So they're expected to book the appointment in the calendar, confirm with the homeowner that they're still good to go, use their Zoom link to take it start to finish. And then we just hop on and do everything, right? So we hop on, we're there, we show up, but they have to build a proposal. They have to do all this because that's the only way that they're going to actually learn and understand it. Because like we've learned, we've just done everything for them. And 5, 6, 7 presentations later, they haven't learned a thing because they don't know what to do. So that's probably like the biggest change that we've made. And now we've also started leveraging our top guys and our top leaders to be able to hop on and take our role so that we're not on every presentation. I would imagine as we start to recruit more and have more leads, it's going to be impossible for us to do that anyway. So.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, there'll be days where you and I have 4 or 5 demos straight trying to help these guys. Maybe one of those is our personal one, but then the other 3 or 4 are from the new guys that set them back to back to back. And so, but yeah, just to touch on what you just talked about, I got to give Dan props because he has set up so many just awesome automations for our CRM. I mean, so many things that happen, like, this has triggered this, that happens this, and automatic drips and all kinds of stuff that's like honestly over my head that blows my mind. So super, super cool stuff. But yeah, I mean, kind of our framework on training, once they go through the onboarding and then they're in the system, we actually have a Zoom every single day with our team. And we used to have it in the mornings. And, with what we do now, every company is different. Every business is different. Every industry is different. So, but what we found is really the hot time for us in solar industry is from like 1 p.m. till 9 p.m. It's the afternoons. That's when really all the money happens. Like we don't really see a whole lot of action. Sometimes, I mean, we have some guys who will get a deal maybe at 11 or 12 type of situation, but for the most part, they're all coming in the afternoon. So we used to do them in the mornings. Now we do them midday. It's like midday meeting. We go over trainings. We get them hyped up. Everybody kind of can get a reset, and then they go and they attack the day. And we do all kinds of different stuff in there, guys, from closing training to sales training to, like Dan said, CRM training, software type training. We'll watch videos. We'll watch, I don't know if you guys have ever looked at the master class, but they got all kinds of really unique stuff in there, which is super cool. We watch different, training platforms that we've done over sales and those types of things. So we're very, very big on training. And we used to do one-on-ones on Fridays, but honestly, our team is getting so big that it was like a freaking marathon. Fridays used to be my least favorite day. Not because I didn't want to meet with my team, but man, after you meet with 15 guys straight in a row, like I remember you and I'd be like, all right, man, 30 minutes back to back to back from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. And like, we would have to legitimately like pack a lunch and like leave it right next to us because we weren't leave. So yeah. It was pretty intense. But we do a lot more one-on-ones kind of throughout the week now. Like I know Dan and I, we very much touch base on our team. There's certain people that, of course, we talk to more because let's be real, they do more, right? So, not saying that you shouldn't touch base with guys who are not doing as well, but think about this for a second, guys. Like if you're talking to somebody every day and you're like, hey, do XYZ. And then the next day you're like, hey, did you do XYZ? No, you haven't. Okay, we'll do XYZ again. And then the next day, and then the next day. And it's like, okay, well, this guy isn't going to do XYZ. So I'm going to stop putting my time into this person. I'm going to go put my time into somebody else who is going to do that. So we kind of found that out as well. But Dan, we have a ton of leads. I mean, more honestly than our team could probably handle. And it sometimes feels like a fire hose, which is a good thing, but also can be a bad thing. So how did we take last month where we overspent on marketing to this month where it's a much more manageable budget, but the lead flow and kind of how that affected our team? Touch base on that if you don't mind.
Yeah. So, I mean, we changed in February. One of the biggest things we were doing is every rep was getting, leads directly assigned to them. Now, what that did was there's a setting in the CRM. I won't go too far into it, but they could only see what was assigned to them. And with that, it kind of limited what they were able to do because we had some sharks on our team that you don't want to put into a shark tank and they can only grow so big, right? They weren't talking to the number of people that they needed to talk to. So we were basically kind of, limiting their success. And what we saw happen when we did that is they actually had, a decline in what they were able to do. So what we did is we kind of just made it so everyone can see everything. And we made a big ocean of all of our leads that anyone can dive in. And it's kind of we've created like a kill or be killed mentality for all of our reps. And we've made it so, hey, the hustlers are going to win because they have access to all of these leads, the same access that you and I have. We like to be one leads to transparency, right? We're not holding anything back from our team. They know exactly what we know. And basically it allows them to go crazy and just call people and talk to people and see if there is a hot lead that someone missed. Like, if me and you, for example, if you had a lead that texted you 6 hours ago and you didn't see it and I jump in and take that lead, at the end of the day, one, from my position, I'm just happy the deal got closed, right? And two, from your position, guess what? That's one, not going to happen again because you're like, wow, man, I lost a lead. I lost a deal because I wasn't paying attention. And then, I think it just it allows to have more eyes on everything going on, especially when you do have that number of leads. There's people in there that are ready to go solar like right now, and we just need to find those. But if we're limiting each individual to 5 or 6, that, for whatever reason, those people just weren't ready to go, what are they supposed to do at that point? You know what I mean? We wanted to just make it an ocean and let them grow as big as possible.
Yeah, man. I mean, ultimately what it did was it put training wheels and a handicap on our top guys. They went from being able to close 2 or 3 deals in a day to maybe 1 in a day because if they didn't have the right leads, like they were getting 8 or 9 leads a day, which was too many also each. But if 8 or 9 of those leads, one of those isn't ready to roll, then, they didn't really have anywhere else to do. And they would call us and be like, hey, this isn't working, and that's another thing too, that's kind of a good framework to have as a leader is you always want to be in touching the pulse of your team. What is your team doing? And we have 1 or 2 guys on our team that kind of also are always in communication with the rest of our team. So we can kind of get a pulse on how our team is doing based off, what they tell us to, because let's be honest, right? Some of the guys aren't going to tell us the truth. They're going to tell us what they want to know, or they're going to tell us what we want to know instead of what we want them to tell us based off the way they're feeling. But we can get that from other guys on our team who are, kind of emerged as leaders within our organization. So I agree. But we also reduced the number of leads that we got. So everybody still gets new leads every single day. And we brought it down from like 8 to 10 new leads a day, which is so many, to 4 to 6, a little bit more manageable, which we're still seeing we looked at it, we talked about it this morning. We're still seeing some of those leads not be hit because we're very much speed to lead. As soon as that lead comes in, the team, whoever got that lead, gets a text message. They're supposed to call that lead as fast as possible, right? And so sometimes they're on a demo or whatever, they're already on a call, they can't do it. But when you go through and you're like, okay, we had 121 leads the last 3 days, and half of those haven't even been touched yet, that's a big problem. And so that's something that we're obviously going to bring in our team meeting here in an hour, and be like, hey, what the heck's going on, guys? Like, this is obviously not how we want to do it. But there's also a caveat to that too, right? That I kind of touched on the last episode, is that they, of course, want to hit all the leads. At least I think at least the majority of our team does, right? They want to do what we ask them to do. But if they have too many leads, they're overwhelmed and they are essentially spending less time on more leads instead of more time on less leads, which is, we're trying to kind of find that balance, right? And so that's why we're also constantly recruiting. So if you guys are out there, our sales reps, or you have that skill of customer service and you enjoy talking to people, even if you have no solar experience, reach out to Dan or I on Instagram, and it's just at our names. Well, actually, no, Dan, yours is different. What yours is at?
At Wiggy 2.
Wiggy 2. So mine's at Zac Fischer. And so reach out to us, because we'd love to interview you and see if you'd be a good fit, because we are scaling. We know the world around us is kind of falling apart, but we're taking the opposite approach, and we are pushing into the marketplace to try to grab as much market share as possible. So I think that was a great episode. Those are all the topics that I had written down, Dan. So if you have any final thoughts before we conclude episode 3, I'll give you the floor.
No, nothing too crazy. I mean, the biggest thing is I guess the last thing that you brought on is thinking that everyone wants to call their leads and do what we say. It actually, I've found that it's pretty surprising, but for whatever reason, when people have leads, they don't call it right away. They just view it as money that they can make down the road. You know what I mean? And for whatever reason, I don't know why that is psychologically, but they don't want to just give them a call. I don't know if they're scared. I don't know if they're nervous. I don't know if they're afraid of rejection and afraid of finding out that it's potentially a no. But it's almost like they're delaying to go and reach out to that person, and they don't want to have that. So I've seen that happen before. And I mean, the biggest advice to anyone listening, if you do get leads, just call them right away. Like go through it, call them right away, hammer them. And if they don't answer on the first call them again tomorrow, call them again in 2 hours. Like, people are actually busy. They're not sitting by their phone waiting for you to call. So definitely, just, you got to make contact, right? People are putting their information into things. And so.
Yes, absolutely. Be relentless. Don't be afraid of the phone, guys. Everyone starts out to be afraid of the phone, but here's the thing. If you want to get over it, just make the calls. Like Dan and I, back in the day, I promise you, we were scared to make calls at one point in time, right? But how did we get over that? We just kept calling people. Okay. Then you start to realize, wow, no one's going to jump through the phone and attack me. So it's totally fine. Just got to get over it. Be relentless. I absolutely love that, Dan. Well, that concludes episode 3, guys, of The Action Effect. The next episode, we will do our March recap. We do apologize that we did not get as many episodes out this month as we wanted to. It's been a little bit of a crazy month, but we do promise that we will get better at that, providing you guys a new episode every week. So episode 3, it's over. Episode 4, March recap. I think you guys will be excited to kind of hear what we did this month and what levels that we hit. And you guys will find out if we hit our goal or not. So thank you all so much. We're out.